Okay, so this is chapter 25 for Anatomy and Physiology 2. Chapter 25 is about metabolism and then about nutrition. And they're related, so that's why they're together. So, first of all, metabolism. Here you can see the nutritional pyramid. We'll talk about later, but metabolic reactions. So they're important to maintain homeostasis. They harvest energy from the different foods, nutrients that you put in your body, the chemical energy. Then they use those chemicals for normal body functioning, to digest food, for example, to make proteins, to think. All of those things we need nutrients for. So when we say metabolism, if somebody's metabolism is high, somebody's metabolism is low, metabolism is actually the sum of all the chemical reactions that take place in your body. If you add them all together, the addition reactions to produce energy, and then the subtraction reactions, the things in your body that take energy. Metabolism can be split up into two types of chemical reactions. The first one is catabolism, or catabolic chemical reactions, taking large molecules and breaking them down into smaller ones, or catabolic reaction. This releases energy when you break up a small thing like a large carbohydrate into a simple glucose molecule. And because they release energy, they are called exergonic. They also liberate heat. Heat is energy. Anabolism is taking small things and making something bigger. And that consumes more energy than it takes, than it produces. So it's referred to as endergonic. It takes a lot of energy to make something. And they also consume heat. So they're opposites. You need to have a balance between the catabolic reactions and the anabolic reactions to maintain homeostasis. The energy currency of the human body is ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. It contains 3 phosphates. Think of it like a fully charged battery, or ATP, and it can be used and then it can be recharged. And there's different enzymes, ATPase, that are involved in the process of making ATP. Oops, that's not what we want. Oh. Okay, that was funny. Right. So a nutrient is anything, a food or liquid that your body needs to meet its metabolic needs. So it can be a chemical like sodium. We've talked a lot about sodium when we talk about nerve conduction, the communication between nerve and muscles. It can provide energy, it's lipids and carbohydrates. The purpose why we need those, the glucose, the harvesting, is to have energy to think, to move. And then we need nutrients to grow. Vitamins are especially important to grow when you're young. A substance that repairs. Proteins, or the subunits or amino acids, are used to build or maintain body functions. And this is just showing what ATP looks like. Okay, so we have an adenine and a triphosphate. The blue boxes here represent the 3 phosphates. Like I said, when you have 3 phosphates together, it's like a fully charged battery. So this is adenosine triphosphate. The bonds that hold the phosphates together are called high energy bonds. Think of the bonds as when they're broken, the energy is released or it's used. When they're not broken, it's ready. It has potential energy. When we talk about ATP, we need to talk about these 2 general types of reactions called oxidation reduction reactions, or redox reactions. They are paired chemical reactions. When one happens, the other happens. So the formation of ATP and then the release of that phosphate to make ADP right here, formation of ATP right here, the release of that energy and the formation of ADP plus phosphate is an example of a oxidation reduction reaction. So here we have catabolic reactions. So we're breaking down an ATP, which we're releasing that energy or releasing that heat. In anabolic reactions, we are forming complex molecules. And we use that ATP energy. Here we're using it, and a byproduct is ATP plus a phosphate. And then we need to make the ATP, release the ATP, make the ATP, release the ATP. This isn't in your original notes, but it's important to talk about. It's in your clinical connection in your book. PKU, or phenylketonuria, is a genetic disorder, rare one, in which your body doesn't break down a protein, phenylalanine, correctly. And it builds up in the blood, and it can cause seizures, mental retardation, things like that. Here we show a heel prick test for PKU that hospitals do on newborns to make sure that they don't have it. And I just have a link here to the Mayo Clinic to talk about PKU and the details of it. That amino acid is built up, and that's not working right now, but you can take a look at it. So, redox reactions. So those combination of the oxidation, reduction reaction. Oxidation is the removal of electrons. And oil rig is a good acronym to remember that. Oil rig. Oxidation is loss, reduction is gain. And this will help you remember what oxidation reduction means. Oxidation is the removal of electrons, which decreases the energy content. And it also just means removal of electrons means removal of hydrogen ions. It's also called dehydrogenation reactions. Reduction is the opposite. It's the addition of the electrons or addition of hydrogen ions that increases the energy content of the molecule. Releases energy, increases the energy. Decreases the energy, increases. There we go. Decreases, increases. Oxidation is loss of electrons. Reduction is gain. Loss of electrons means loss of hydrogen ions. So oxidation reduction reactions happen a lot in the formation of ATP. To get that ATP molecule formed in your body, which your body needs to do the things that it needs to do, happens in a process called cellular respiration, where a molecule of glucose is split in different chemical reactions. A series of different chemical reactions happen to liberate or release different molecules of ATP. Most of the ATP is produced in what's called the electron transport chain, and which is a series of oxidation reactions. Oxidation is loss of electrons. And when those electrons are lost, they produce a lot of ATP, and ATP is that potential energy. But that ATP, that hydrogens that are lost, the hydrogen that are lost in that oxidation reaction, they're not just hanging out free by themselves. They're usually carried by these carrier molecules called NAD and FAD. And so they pick up that loose hydrogen and they carry it where it needs to go. Here you can see an NAD without a hydrogen. It's carrying the hydrogen, so it's called NADH. Your book goes into more details about these oxidation reduction reaction and gives some really good images of how they're usually paired. If a hydrogen ion is lost by one molecule, it's picked up by another. So in this example, this NAD has been reduced. So reduction is gain. So it's reduced, it's become reduced, so it gained a hydrogen ion. So it's carried it to where it needs to go, and then it will release it or be oxidized. So this just shows one molecule of glucose, like an apple, eventually becoming a lot of ATP, and then also the byproducts are carbon dioxide and water. So this takes place in the mitochondria of cells, and this is the electron transport chain. Think of the chain of events like a staircase And each one of these is just a transfer of electrons or oxidation reactions. The extra hydrogens are carried via these coenzymes, NAD and FAD. In reduction, after being reduced, increase of potential energy because they carry another bond with a hydrogen ion. Remember, those bonds, once released, release the energy. I added this one as well. These terms can be confusing, so it's important to just try to simplify it. Glycogenesis, genesis to make, is the storage of glucose into glycogen. So when your body takes glucose in, it will package it into glycogen, store it in some muscles in the liver. Your body stores glucose in the form of glycogen. When your body needs glucose, needs to liberate it, it will split the glycogen and release glucose. That is called glycogenolysis, split the glucose. When glycogen is not available and you need glucose, let's say you've depleted your reserves in your liver and in your muscles, which you can do, then glyconeogenesis will happen. Neo, think of new. So when you're out of glucose to make ATP, your body still needs energy. So what it's going to do, it's going to break down lipids, fats in your body. It's going to break down protein. So that's what those two terms mean. And I also added these as well. Cholesterol is talked about a lot when we talk about somebody's health and their circulatory system. So we have two different types of cholesterol, low density lipoproteins. This is known as bad cholesterol. You have a little bit's okay, but too much, then that's why it's nicknamed bad. So its job, it's a low density lipoproteins that carries cholesterol throughout the body. We need cholesterol to repair cell membranes, to make hormones like estrogen, for example. If you get too much of it, though, in your diet, too much of this LDL or cholesterol, it deposits the extras around the smooth muscle fibers in your arteries and around your heart, forming plaque that build up of a build up in the arteries. And that just increases your risk for heart disease, coronary heart disease in the outside blood vessels. And what can cause this? Eating too high of a fat of a diet, fast food, for example. High density lipoproteins are known as good cholesterol. Their job is to remove excess cholesterol from your body cells and blood. And then they transport it to the liver for elimination. So more HDLs is a good thing. They decrease your risk for coronary heart disease. This is found in like nuts, olive oils, things like that. We're going to stop right there for that part.